The day my dead brother came home, I awoke to the smell of salty broth. My mother pulled me from sleep with cool fingers. "He's home," she said. "Who?" "Your brother." When she said his name, I pushed away the thought of the boy I had once known. Glasses round and thick with framing eyes and eyelashes I never stopped envying. But instead, I rolled over and said, "My brother is dead. Let me sleep." But my mother pulled back the covers and said, "He needs a change of clothes. Give him yours." I heard her speaking to someone, asking my brother if he was hungry. When I went into the living room with a pair of clothes and a pair of shorts, she was seated on the low sofa, rubbing her hands over a flowered pillow. "He's soaking," she said. "Give him the clothes so he can change." So why is he wet?" "There's a storm outside," she said, as confirmed by the rain patter against the window. And also, he had to swim so far to get here. "He can't swim," I said. Narratives of migration often discuss opportunities gained, but less often, the costs. Clinical psychologist Jorge Aroque explains that migratory grief can be defined as the emotional burden of losing one's family, home, and culture along the journey. But Aroque explains that migratory grief can also be defined by less tangible, ambiguous loss. When inevitably confronted with the social, cultural, and economic discrimination in their new country, migrants can experience grief about the illusions and fantasies with what would have been different had they stayed back home. Author Janika Oza considers this same question through an unnamed protagonist whose mother is haunted by the ghost of her dead son one night. Forced to placate her mother's delusion, the protagonist confronts the grief about her brother's death that she has tried so hard to ignore, and confronts the same question that has haunted my family for decades. Would we have been better off if we had stayed? Fish Stories by Janika Oza. My brother drowned years ago when we first came to this country, where children learned to swim before they could walk. Burbling mounds of fat and feathery hair dropped into communal swimming pools like coins. Careless wishes, tossed by believing parents. My mother looked at me. He learned, of course. He had to swim all that way. "What's that smell?" I asked. "I'm making soup," she said. Go, help him change while I go check on it." When she went into the kitchen, I heard the spoon against the pot, the splitter of the garlic, the mustard seed frying in oil. Moving to the couch, I sat where she had sat and fingered the pile of clothes next to me. My brother was older than I, but he had always been slight, his collarbones knocking against mine whenever we would hug, which wasn't often, but I remember he would sling his arm around me when we walked home from school and whisper low into my ear to drown out the calls of the kids on the field. "Where did you even come from?" they would ask. "Where's your dad?" But my brother, he would stroll over there with this easy cool, nod his head at the boys who were doubled over in cruel laughter and steer me away. Just like that. Something was crackling in the kitchen. Maybe it was the dry chilies, the ticking of the back burner that never quite worked. "Almost ready," my mom called in this sing-song, high-pitched voice, as if it wasn't the middle of the night, and she didn't have to be up in 5 hours to be on her cold feet all day in a hospital waiting room. "Okay," I said as I picked up the clothes and shoved them under the pillow. One day I arrived at school to find that no one was interested in bothering me. Instead, I found a group of boys around my brother. My brother was recounting story after story, chipping his hands into mountains, rivers, elephants, swords. "Yes, we rode lions to school, and for dinner my mom would crack open a monkey skull and we would feast. For my birthday, we shared a cake made of mango flesh studded with passion seed fruit like jewels. Yeah, we swam here. Took us a whole year. In fact, halfway through the journey, my father realized that he forgot our money. So he turned back and swam all the way to fetch it. But he'll be back any day now, with our money too." The boys nodded with what looked like hesitant admiration. I would later recognize it as jealousy. My mother was humming over the stove, her arm nearly all the way into one of the pots, grunting with effort. "Do you need help?" I asked. But she just shook her head and said, "You just keep your brother company. He's missed you." My mother pulled 2 wide bowls from the cabinet and labeled in broth, and he drunk vegetables. "He never liked spice much," she said, adding a green chili. When my mother emerged from the kitchen, she looked at me and then my brother and said, "Oh, where did he go?" I looked at the empty chair that I had pulled out for my brother, the steam curling around the emptiness. Just as the plate had sat 7 years ago, when we waited for my brother to come home. The spoon untouched, the napkin to be folded up and placed back in the cutlery drawer. Though the food would be sitting out all night. The next morning we would find bugs feasting on the uneaten corn and an upturned fly floating in the orange grease. Later we would find out that some of the boys had challenged my brother to proof that he had swam all across the world, leading him to the creek after school. If only he had mentioned an airplane or a boat or even the life jacket. My mother sat across from the 2 brimming bowls. "Never mind," she said. "We'll just leave this out until morning. He'll be back any day now."